Well, welcome into another episode of Story World. Steve Schramm here with my boy Al. How's it going, man?
It's going well. How about yourself, Steve?
Man, it's going so well. I'm so excited. This is going to be actually not a very fun topic, if I'm being honest.
No, it's not. You're
Yeah,
gonna see Steve's and my frustration and hatred and anger, which we all know leads to the dark side. But
amen. Yeah. Well, I'm going to try not to be. I'll try to be good. I'll try to be good, but it is an interesting subject matter. Anyway, so glad you're joining us. We are. This is what we're. This is like episode 28 or something now.
episode 28. Yep.
Yeah, sweet, sweet. So we're doing pretty good. I am excited to announce that as of today, we are beginning to get our stuff on YouTube. So it's probably actually going to be out on YouTube before this airs, whatever. That's fine because we record a couple episodes in advance. But anyway, the stuff is finally getting ready to be on YouTube as well. So here soon you are
That's
going to be able to
really
watch visually, and that's super duper exciting for us because we've been recording all of these on video with an awesome background and everything that literally nobody besides us has
I
gotten
know.
to see.
I know.
Uh,
It's amazing, and we're the only ones that have been able to enjoy it.
I know. I feel like this whole look and feel is part of the podcast, and nobody's been able to see it yet. So now they'll be able to, and
That'd
so
be great.
pretty pumped about that. Hopefully, we can share it with even more people with it being on YouTube and everything as well. So yeah, pretty
Definitely.
pumped about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say before we got into the episode, because usually we save this stuff for the end, but once everything's on YouTube and we don't have a social media page yet, but we will at some point. I know we will. But and a lot of you know us personally. So if you have any questions or topics we want to discuss, either leave a comment on YouTube or send us a text or mention something to us because at some point we definitely want to roll out an episode or so, just either answering questions or whether it's about our love for eating meat together or watching a movie together or
Yeah.
all the above. So doesn't matter what question or what topic, we will tackle it.
Yep, yep, yep. That's right. That's right. All right. Well, I guess we can no longer delay the inevitable.
Yeah.
We must confront evil head on in its path. And so tonight we are talking about writing in the classroom. Writing in the classroom.
Mhm.
And I almost don't really know the best place to start even here, Alex. So I think I'm going to let you take it away.
The best place to start is with a diploma, so you don't have to write in the classroom again. That's the best
Mm,
place to start.
this is accurate.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Steve and I forget who brought it up first, but we have talked a few times. We both love writing, we both love reading, just a lot. And one thing that we both very much disliked in school was writing. In fact, it kind of partially turned me away from like either doing a minor in creative writing or something else down that path. So yeah, our topic is probably going to be a little bit negative tonight, but at the same time, hopefully we can put forth some good thoughts on how to maybe improve writing in the classroom or how you can help like your kids out at home if they're go to a school that isn't that you also don't like how they put forth the writing, but just some thoughts there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just comment on that briefly. It's really ironic. I love writing now. It's my favorite thing to do. I do it, more than anything else almost. I mean, I spent probably more than an hour just today writing. And yet it was one of my very least favorite things to do in school. And I don't know, maybe we can dig into this a little bit, but I guess too there's a lot more when I write today, it's like I tend to write about things that I either already know a good bit about, or like that would be number 1, or number 2, if I do have to research, it's very minimal. And then number 3, it's like, if I do have to research, about it, and even if it's more extensive, it's like it's usually about something that I like, I'm doing it by my own choice, and, I think we both kinda can attest to that a little bit, that it really changes things when you're doing it that way. But yeah, just in general, writing for me always felt like such a chore, such an exercise because, um, I had to do research, and a lot of times I didn't know the subject matter very well, and not only did I not know the subject matter very well, I had no interest in learning the subject matter, let alone writing about it. And, as I'm talking aloud, another thing I'm thinking about is when I was in school, frankly, I didn't even like learning. And so
Mm.
I was there in school to learn to be educated, and I didn't like it. I got I mean, I think everybody sort of shares a similar story, but I can't think of anybody in the world who was more excited than me to walk into the classroom and that 90s black cart of salvation was there with the tube TV and the VCR, and you just knew it was movie day or video day, and it was like, "Oh, thank the Lord. I do not have to actually learn today. I could just watch and pretend to learn." And yet today, I'm an avid reader. I mean, I can honestly say that I read as much or more than probably anyone in my own circle of influence, in my own sort of sphere of life, and that's super weird. Like if you were to ask my wife 10 years ago, um, would is Steve a reader? Does Steve like to read? Does Steve like to learn? I promise you, she would have laughed you into the next century. I mean, there's just that's not who I was, and maybe sometime we can even talk about that on the podcast. But I went
Mm.
through a dramatic change, around 2015, in many areas of my life. But I did, and one of those things resulted in just a voracious love for reading. I went from reading almost nothing to reading 30, 40, or even more books per year. And being obsessed with learning. And so the more obsessed with learning I got, also the more obsessed with writing I got. And I think when I was in school, frankly, I just didn't like either.
Yeah. Did you read much? So you didn't read much in high school either, or really wasn't recently till you started reading a lot?
Yeah, no, it was I didn't really start reading a lot until 2015, 2016. I graduated high school in 2008.
Okay. So I my setup was a little bit different. So I did read a ton in elementary, junior high, high school, and then I even like wrote a lot on my own. And so my kind of I hate's a strong word, but my dislike for writing papers in school, and Steve and I are specifically talking about like actual like writing like a paper or a report. Obviously, kids need to learn how to write like like normal
Sure.
normal
Yeah.
writing and literacy and everything. So but we're actually talking about writing papers and assignments. Okay, got that out. So one thing that I disliked about it is it was just you had to write a certain way. Um, and you were pigeonholed into writing that certain way that really only applies to people who will eventually, in my opinion, write research papers or become PhDs and like write their own different papers for publication. Now I know, Steve, you write for published uh, either magazines or online journals or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the format that you probably write in is quite a bit different than what I was taught. Every single paper was the same. It was whether it was a research paper, or even a paper about a book I was reading about in creative writing class. It was you start with your introduction, you give an introduction on what your paper is about. You list your points. Here's my first point, second point, third points. And then you talk about your points. Here's my point one, talk about it. Point two, talk about it. And then at the end, you say, here are the 3 points I just talked about. And then conclusion, and then you're done. And I would get an A every single time because it was the most formulaic process ever, and it was the
Yeah.
easiest A ever. And if you were um, just a capable writer, not even a great one, if you just follow that, that was what the teachers graded me on, at least
Wow.
personally. Now, maybe it would have ended up being different if I ventured more to like special like minoring in creative writing or something. Maybe I'm speaking kind of ignorantly of people who actually go down that rabbit hole, but from the surface level, that's what I ran into. And so it was one following that certain structure, that certain format. I'm not, and we've talked about before, like successful, even fiction works follow a somewhat format. There's usually that
Sure.
introduction, the beginning, it's a 3 act format that works, but there's also a lot of wiggle room in between. You're not in the middle of the book saying, oh, by the way, here's my 3 points that just happened in the book. It's a lot different.
Yeah.
Um, but and then the other thing, so following the structure and then also being forced to write about a topic that you don't like. I remember it's been a while since I've read it. Maybe I have to read again and give it another shot. But I read the Scarlet Letter, I think twice. And the last time was in college. And I just hated that book. I just could not get into it. I thought it was boring. Even like like talking about it in class and hearing about all like the analogies in it and what it all means, I just did not like it. Maybe I have to give it a second chance, but so we spent a good chunk of that month or so reading the Scarlet Letter, talking about it, and then writing a paper about it. And it just feels like a wasted month. Like,
Right.
so much time wasted on, 1, learning a subject that I didn't care for. I know sometimes you have to do that. But then
Yeah.
2, having to expend my energy and thought and time on writing on the subject that I did not like. Anyway,
Yeah.
I kinda have solutions later on on how to fix these problems, but those are kinda my surface level issues that just frustrated me about writing in the classroom.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you there. Like, I'm thinking back to, all the English and literature classes and things like that that I took. And this, I told Alex right before we went live. I said, I promise I'm not going to be. I'm trying not to be ultra negative. And the very next thing I wrote was, our education system sucks. So I'm sorry for that. Um, but look, if you don't have an opinion, then you're irrelevant. And I do have an opinion about this. I don't necessarily have all the solutions.
Mhm.
If I did, I wouldn't anyway. I would share them. I promise. But I'm still every now and then going to gripe about it. I think uh, in traditional education, kids learn things that are not relevant. A lot of things that are not relevant, and they do not learn a lot of things that are relevant. You know, um, this might be controversial, especially among a writing audience, but I'm not so sure that anybody growing up in high school really needs to be taught about Shakespeare or the Canterbury Tales
Mm.
or those sorts of things. Um, let's just take the Canterbury Tales as one example. Do I know what that was? Vaguely. Why do I know what that was? Because I remember learning about it in high school, and we even did like a little mini play thing where people were different characters from the thing. And that is literally all I remember about it. Now, mind you, I understand that on my, whatever, if you on my quote unquote resume, what I am today is a web designer, but um I basically write for a living, right? I'm basically a writer because these days my time is spent writing internal communication to the team, external communication to clients, marketing communication to the world to get new clients, and like that's it. That's 80% of what I do realistically. And the other, there's probably another 10% that is still more writing for things like, creating more advanced content like courses or stuff like or books or stuff like that. And then there's
And
probably another 10% that's actually web design. Okay.
mm,
So as a person who makes 80% of his living doing words, whether it be these podcasts, this is not writing, but this is words. Right? I make 80% of my living doing words. And yet the words of the Canterbury Tales, I literally remember nothing about that story other than the fact that we learned about it in high school. Same with
yeah,
Beowulf or something like that. Now I get it. I know. I'm sure some of you are jumping down my throat right now because it's like, oh, we need to preserve the great historical. Fine, okay. I'm sure there is absolutely some truth to that, but I'm just saying, I feel like why did I learn about the Canterbury Tales in high school, but I didn't learn how to budget so that my family would not go under like literally the day you graduate high school, it's like you need to learn how to budget. Like the day, because the very next thing that happens is you go to college and they start sending you credit card things in the mail. And they start, you know what I mean? And you get hit with it immediately, right? And so it's like, okay, can we at least maybe agree that it's more important to learn how to deal with your personal finances than it is to learn about the works of Shakespeare or insert whatever thing here. And so um I so I guess that's just my question. That's sort of why I didn't like it is because I felt like there was a lot of, again, formulaic, but formula is not necessarily bad. I mean, a lot of the writing I do today is formula, like marketing, copywriting. This is actually the big like misnomer about it. When people first start to learn about copywriting, one of the things that you'll find out is that eh, eh, being creative is not what what wins. Actually, it's really a combination of two things. Number one, being human and relatable. And number two, following particular formulas that have been proven to work over decades. Um, and so it's not uh, formula and structure aren't the problem. Those are actually pretty good things. But there really is a question about well, the one way that I put it here is I think there's a journey in life towards passion. Passion is maybe not the best word. If I can say passion, then I should also say something like proficiency. In other words, life is a journey. You eventually find out what you want to be and what you want to do when you grow up. And I think most people are going to take a while to discover that. But I'm not so sure that um, the path to that should be paved with assignments. The way that I wrote it in my notes, exploration is always better than assignment. And not to go on too big of a tangent here, but when looking into education options for my kids, one of the things that really interested me was the Montessori way of of um, of teaching, which is basically an exploration based system where pretty much all throughout elementary school, even through high school, the kids' education is based on exploration of things in their environment, and not so much based on structured assignments that some bureaucrat somewhere decided was the right thing for the kid to learn. Um, so anyway, I better stop before I get too much more worked up and let you comment here. But that's kind of so Alex shared where he's at with it. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, no, no, that's good. So yeah, those are kind of my issues with it. And now really the only thing I have left is to talk about not specific solutions. This isn't a episode to talk about how to solve the education system. Steve and I are not bright enough for that. But
Yeah.
just my thoughts on what I think could help and um, how to practically help in your own house. I assume probably a lot of people listening to this, if not maybe most, are have kids or are going to have kids, and so just some things to think about that I've thought about. So first of all, when it comes to actually in the classroom, again, not trying to solve the school system, but just some thoughts because I know that some of this stuff is hard to do and to work around. But as of right now, you have a situation where it is a lot of, 30 kids in a classroom or 20 kids or however many writing the same thing and the teacher grading the same paper. It doesn't matter if a student even likes writing at all or doesn't want to write about this particular subject. Everyone has to do it. And I think it would just be nice to have a little bit of free reign in the writing class when it's supposed to be something creative. Math is math and grammar is grammar. You have certain English things that are meant to be set in stone, but when it comes to writing, I know of a couple people that I've talked to who they didn't just hate the writing school, they hated school period because they hated to write and just write in general in that form. I had a friend who liked to think in terms of like comics, and he loved comics and wanted to created stories that way. And I just always thought, well, why can't he create something like that for class? I mean, that's a huge exploration of the mind and getting like story down on paper. And so again, that does make it hard on the teacher. How do you kind of accurately grade each thing if it's not a system? But just a kind of thought where instead of a structure, especially for young kids, if you're in college and you're going for something specific, if you want to be an academic and get a PhD and do that your whole life, then yeah, of course, maybe follow a structured writing process and have the teacher grade it very strictly. But if you're, a 10, 11, 12-year old and you like Harry Potter and you want to write your own wizard thing, might as well write on that rather than Pilgrim's Progress. Not thrashing on Pilgrim's Progress. I actually like that book, but just let the kid explore and do their own thing. Now, again, it's obviously hard. You're in the classroom setting, that's hard to do. So, what to do at home. So, one thing that really helped me growing up is both my both my dad and my stepdad really encouraged me with not only did they introduce me to stories at such a young age, but anytime I would write something, no matter how horrible it was, always just encourage me to keep on writing it and keep on doing it. And they would ask me questions about what I'm writing and really show an interest in what I'm doing. So like if your kid, obviously don't force your kids to do anything creative they don't want to do, but if your kid shows an interest in writing like a comic or writing some like funny story or whatever, or even if it's not writing, if it's telling, if it's talking, we have the iPhones now. If they want to talk a story into a phone, help them out with it and encourage them to explore it. So I think the big thing, can't rely on school to really teach your kids or allow your kids to explore, do what you necessarily want them to do. So at home, yeah, encourage your kids, give them the strength and just the toughness and will to explore what they want. Let them know that it's okay to tell a story about this or to talk about that, and just let them explore where their mind is going to wander. And I think that will help in a really big way because it definitely helped me. I just think if there was just one time where, at 8 years old, I was writing stuff. If my dad said, well, that doesn't really, make sense. I don't know why you put that in the book. Just like one thing like that to a little kid who's just having fun can really destroy him. But,
Right.
I mean, just one thing could crush him. And that never happened to me. And so I was an 8-year old thinking I was writing, the work of some literary masterpiece, but it was just an 8-year old kid's writing. But man, that helped me grow and continue writing. And wouldn't say I'm the best writer in the world, but I know a little something about writing, and so yeah, definitely, it's definitely worked out for me.
Yeah, I think, what I'm gonna say is probably just another way of putting what you just said, so, I won't belabor the point, but, um, I think if I did have any sort of advice, or at least, this is kinda what I plan to do with my kids, is foster their interests.
Yeah.
I just can't help but think, thinking back to myself, I'm kind of channeling a little bit of my kids, the age they are now, and then maybe thinking of myself a few years older than them when I could read and write a little better and I was in school. I just can't help but think that um I would have done a pretty good job if somebody had asked me to write a paper on Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z. And I'm not like you might say, "Oh, well that's like silly kid stuff." Well, silly kid stuff though it may be, they there are some pretty um dark and light
Mm.
and fundamentally human themes that happen in shows like that and others, um, that are also, um, um, relevant to and understandable by children. Another example would be something like, Kratts Creatures or Zubumafu. These shows that, like, yeah, if you'd have asked me to, or if I had had the opportunity to do a project, or especially a writing a research project or something like that on like my favorite episodes of Kratts Creatures. Again, I'm just pulling something out of the sky here, where they went and talked about, this particular animal or whatever. Like, I feel like I would have not only done a really, really good job, but I would have loved every second of it. And so it seems weird to me, right? It seems like if you know, if we're going to do the whole grading thing anyway, if we're going to assign now get me started on that, but if we're going to assign some sort of worth to our children via a grade on their performance, on how well they did at understanding a particular subject matter, it feels like we ought to give them the best chance possible. And to me, that's not forcing them to manufacture interest in something they have no
Mm.
interest in. Not again, I'm not arguing against doing hard things. There's even books written about this. Do hard things. It's good to do hard things. Um, but I'm talking about literally, you're an 8-year-old here, right? Or whatever, or even a teenager or whatever. They don't know what they want to be at when they grow up, but they certainly have interest. And believe it or not, their interest, if you would just, talk to them every once in a while, they do go beyond things like the opposite sex and the opposite sex. I promise they do. They have interest in other areas as well. I know because I was one, um, and I had interest in lots of areas, and yet nobody ever in school engaged me in those areas of interest, nor did they encourage me to express myself creatively, uh, based on those areas of interest. So I think I would say, and that's ultimately, I mean, look at the only people who go to work every day and continue to do a job they hate, there's only 2 types of people that do that. The first type is somebody who doesn't have a choice. They're just trying to scratch out a living. They, for whatever reason, whatever, they didn't get the right education or just whatever it is. They're not motivated or whatever. They're trying to scratch out a living. The other are the people who love money so much that if they're getting paid well at a job, they don't really care. They'll just keep on doing the job even if they hate it. I would say the vast majority of people are not motivated in either of those directions. I would say the vast majority of people who are doing what they do on a regular basis legitimately enjoy their jobs, if not are very passionate about their jobs because of whatever reason, because they legit like the work or whatever. And so I get what's the point? I guess the point I'm trying to make here is when it comes to what you're going to end up doing as a productive human, I can't really think of situations beyond the two I just mentioned where somebody's not going to end up doing what they really want to do for a living. And so that sort of tells me that the education system should be a lot more geared towards um, one's developing interests than assignments. So anyway,
Well
that's kind of
said.
my 2 cents.
No, well said. I think that's good. Does that button up everything you had for this
Well,
topic?
yeah, maybe. I have a question for you.
Uh,
I kind of want to know, and maybe you haven't considered this, but I kind of want to know where you come down on the thing I mentioned a while ago, talking about like, yeah, to what degree, and this kind of enters more into education than writing specifically, but to what degree do we need to learn about the Canterbury Tales and Shakespeare and Beowulf? I
mm,
mean, or is that really a necessary part of our I don't know anybody who would think about it for 2 seconds and say that, "Yeah, we should have that instead of, like, learning how to budget." So I'm not asking you that question. I'm just saying, like, do you think that those literary masterpieces of days gone by or whatever, do they play a legitimate role in our kids' education, or are they something that we could actually do without in most cases?
I think we could probably do without in most cases. And you're not married to your opinion, so just keep that in mind. But my opinion as of right now is that I think I've expressed kind of this stuff with you before, but um if a kid or a teenager naturally has an interest or something, they're gonna ask questions about it and dig deeper into it. They're not just gonna
Mhm.
sit there. And so I think, I guess it's not entirely worthless, but rather than have a whole semester or a whole year dedicated teaching high schoolers or junior hires about all of these, old stories that were told, that goes anything deeper than just surface level of like from a historical lesson, like, hey, here's who these writers were. It might take a day to describe all of that, maybe
Right.
a week at
Yeah.
most. Um, Kids who find that interesting after that week topic are going to ask their teachers about it. They're going to look up books on their own, especially with today's room
Yeah.
of the internet. They're going to want to do it themselves. It's no use teaching someone who wants to be an architect teaching them
Yeah.
specifics about Shakespeare and his writing
Yeah.
style and why he wrote the way he did and what context is. But a student who loves writing and loves that historical sense of that and all the meanings that they're gonna, specialize in it and go to college about it and, maybe like write plays that reference it or who knows
Right.
what. And so, yeah, for me, I think that pretty much any topic that gets into specifics, whether it has to do with space, animals, like ocean
Mm,
biology,
yeah.
I would say nearly 100% of those topics should be taught very surface level. And then kids who find interest in it are going to go towards it. And the kids that aren't don't need to know anymore. That's kind of
Yep.
my opinion right
Yeah.
now.
That's I like that. That's a good way to put it. I mean, I'm just thinking of, we live in I live in Statesville, North Carolina, redneck country. And I'm just thinking, half the kids in high school, in these parts are like what they do for fun on the weekend is like work on their diesels. And you know, prob probably
And
probably
talk
a
about
good
Shakespeare.
right, yeah, sure. It's like, probably a good percentage of them want to grow up and be like a diesel mechanic. And I'm just thinking, and it's like they know that, like they viscerally know that they do it for fun. They would love to do it to get paid, and they realize that it gets. I mean, like freaking diesel mechanics get paid like in the hundreds of thousands of
Yeah.
dollars. Like I don't know if anybody knows that. At least it's a six-figure job to be a diesel mechanic. Um, so right, it's kind of like okay, if you, I don't know why I just am randomly picking that example. I guess because of the redneck thing, but it's like if you're in high school, what you do on the fun for weekend is work on your stinking truck, and you know that you want to be a diesel mechanic, and you know they get paid well. Then why should you be forced to go through a semester of learning about literature or whatever? Like fast track your butt through some program, and then graduate high school
Yeah.
and get a job in a shop, and like boom, be in your
And,
career.
and we
And
touched on
do
this a little bit but not just have to write a paper on it, but also maybe go with the fear of not being able to graduate, or like having to write that paper and am I going to
Right.
get a grade to
Yeah.
pass it?
Yeah.
I This is going into a little
Yep.
bit
Yep.
uncharted
Yep.
territory. We're kind of past all the stuff. We're going down some rabbit holes now. But I mean, it really kind of makes you wonder, like, what's the point of a 4-year high school? Like, honestly, if a kid like at 16, you see more of this more and more. Parents sign off on it. Like if you're 15, 16, you're like, hey, you know what? Like, I want to be a diesel mechanic. Why not just stop high school and take like a 2, 3, 4 year apprenticeship? And then boom, by the time you're 19 or 20, you're making, 80, 100, 120, however much it is. Like,
Yo, in the
why not do
Bible, they
that?
were getting married and having babies at 13 years old. Okay. I'm not necessarily
We know what Steve's advocating for.
yeah, I'm not necessarily arguing for that today. I'm just saying it's like maturity thousands of years ago was like, now that I'm pretty sure there are people who like argue right now that you're not actually an adult now until like you shouldn't be considered an adult until you're like 28 or something crazy like that. And I'm like, yo, like that has doubled somehow from thousands of years ago. Like, are we that wussified? And look, I'm not some tough guy. If you met me in real life, you would 100%, you look at me as like a
I can vouch
goofy,
for that.
yeah, right. Like who's this goofy jelly bean over here? But like, I seriously have enough sense to anyway. So in short, I totally agree with you. I'm thinking like, why the 4-year high school? Why are we
Yeah.
graduating high
So
school at
like,
18, going to college and prolonging a useless education for 4 more years? Like, why?
yeah.
In most cases,
So if you're in high school and you have some high schools break out like a whole year or like semesters, but let's say whether it's a semester or a whole year that you take up biology and you're cutting open frogs and learning about all that stuff, like that's cool. Why don't you condense that to like a month? Like a month of
right.
biology, a month of
Mhm.
chemistry, a month of maybe like space stuff, a month of rocks. Like just have like a really basic overview. And like I said, if
Mhm.
someone's like, wow, I really like rocks, I might want to go to college and study that, then boom, that kid can go to college.
Yep, yep, 100%. And
Anyway,
yeah, yeah, anyway, yeah. And okay, we should move on. Stories of the week,
yeah,
shall we?
stories of the week. Yeah. So
Okay,
I had to, I'm going to push one out probably to next week, but I'm going to replace it with another one
okay,
because it goes right in line. I've told you this before and I'm going to maybe botch it up a little bit, but Quentin Tarantino had an interview. Someone was interviewing one time. Uh, I'm not necessarily advocating for how his ultimate decision, but he basically said he has not given his mom a single dime of the money that he's made, except to help her in some issues that came up. And before that's why he said that when he was, 12 years old or something, he was in school, not really getting good grades because he hated school, the what we were just talking about, hated school, hated to force into writing stuff. And so he just wrote like screenplays and, scripts and a bunch of fun stuff that he liked to do. And I forget the specific word he used, but basically his mom said, stop wasting his time, get his head out of that and, start doing well in school. And again, I'm sure there's more to
yeah,
the story. There's probably side for his mom, but basically his reason for not giving his mom a single dime was that she didn't encourage him to pursue what he loved, and what he loved is
mhm,
what made him all this money.
yep,
Again, take it or leave it for what if that's the best decision or not to show some kindness to your parent. But it just kind of shows like what you do say as a parent does affect. Obviously, what she said to him affected what was in his mind, and so anyway, that
yeah,
just kind of goes right in line with the story. And then the second short thing that I have is a new like Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. Yeah, not Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power teaser dropped from Amazon. It's coming out September 2nd or 7th, I think. And it's just really cool. It's a minute long thing. Some of it is some stuff I think that was already used in the previous trailer. But it's really neat. Pretty much everyone's looking at a meteor. And I have a hunch, maybe it's obvious, I don't know, but I have a hunch that it's probably I think they're called the Isturi. It's the 5, like, wizards that known as Gandalf and Saruman and Radagast and a couple of the other ones. I think that that's them coming to Earth, and again, maybe my timeline's messed up, but, anyway, just some really, really cool things, in there, and I'm excited for it.
yeah, 100%. Cool. Yeah, I'm excited for it too. I still got to finish the second book of Lord of the Rings.
Yes, and then we gotta watch the
I'm
movie.
yes, 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 yes. Okay, so I'll take two quick ones here. The first is essay.app. So Jordan Peterson and his son, who I believe it's also a J name, but it slipped my mind. Um, Peterson have launched what they call essay.app, and it is a writing platform it kind of goes along well with our topic, which is why I chose it. But it's a writing it's a online writing software that basically encourages you to write and helps you write using the method that Jordan Peterson has taught for, I guess, decades, in his classes on writing. And so it helps you write essays. And it's sort of, the fundamental foundational premise of it is something that I very much agree with. And that is that writing is sort of the differentiator, from one person to the next. I mean, how well you can write and share and articulate ideas, is says a lot about your personality. And I think I mean, what can I say? Like, writing was the past, and writing will always be the future, because that's how humans communicate well. um, is through thoughtful, considered writing. I mean, that's just how humans
Mhm.
communicate. And so, this is an app that helps you do that. It walks you through the process, and it's super cheap. I mean, it's like $4 a month or something like that. And helps you, yeah, get really good at writing and rewriting and structuring your writing. It's pretty cool. So SA.app, yeah, you can check that out. Um, and then the second one is a little self-serving, but just something new that I've been working on, which is cool. I have this mentorship program for called Subscription Web Design that I work with people who are basically me 5 years ago, people who are maybe the target audience is those looking to get into or sort of at the very beginning of working in a web design business, owning a web design business, but honestly, the mentorship would work for seasoned people as well. The idea is to get them into charging for websites via a subscription model instead of the way most people do, which is, hey, pay me half up front, half down, or whatever. And there's all kinds of reasons why you might do that. Well, the story of the week is that I have at the coaxing of my own web design coach, I have gone ahead and created a course out of that material to start offering to people. And so I've got it all set up. It's going to be going into pre-sale pretty soon. I may announce on the podcast. Well, I actually probably by the time this podcast goes out, it will be either on pre-sale or for sale. So you'll be able to get to it by going to my site, steveschramm.co. If you just happen to be in the listening audience now or in the future and want to learn how to build a subscription website design business, I've literally got the course that will take you from A to Z on exactly how to do that, set the whole thing up, and it's my gift to you. So
And
anyway,
all you have to do is listen to Steve Schramm even more.
yes, that's all that is. And look, I wrote down. So there's basically a I'd call it a transcript, except I basically wrote the lesson and then spoke the lesson with a little bit more character. So if you don't want to hear me, all you have to do is read, and you can read the lessons and get pretty much the same ideas. So it's exciting. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a cool way without. Some people don't want to commit to the whole like monthly ongoing mentorship thing. Some people just want to get in, learn what they need, and get out. And so this is for those people. So yeah, I'm excited about it. You can just go to stevestram.co and it'll be there if you're interested in that sort of thing.
I can't wait to see the next company, Steve.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty sweet, right? It's just all kinds of little stuff. So, hey, multiple income streams. This is the name of the game.
Yes.
I'll preach that one all day long. If you have multiple income streams, you will not have to be beholden to a job or a boss ever again. So, some people don't mind that. Alex seems to like jobs and bosses pretty good. So that's my, and other people do too. Me, the thought of having to go back to a real job makes me shudder. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to keep that from having to happen. So that's it.
Absolutely.
All
Awesome.
right. Very good. Cool. Thanks guys for joining us. Alex, any parting words?
I cannot wait to see you next time, Steve.
Oh man,
And
I can't wait to see you either in all of your glowing glory.
yes, and all of my pink skin tinted glory.
All right, guys. Well, share the podcast. It might maybe this episode won't be, but some other episodes will almost certainly be on YouTube by the time you listen to this. So go check us out, Story World on YouTube. Share with your friends.
See ya.